Breaking at this hour, TBI agents are at the Alabama home, but a truck driver accused in a kidnapping. The bloody underwear of several women were found inside that driver's truck. Roy Nels, to me, really embodies evil. I mean, this to me was a pure embodiment of evil. There is to this date only one woman who police know was able to escape. Nelsh. I was to the point where I felt desperate. I'll get you out. I already know I'm probably gonna die, so I'm not gonna go down. Without a fight. Jeremy. It's important to note no one outside of police has ever seen what you have uncovered the story when you read it or hear about it, so it's like a movie. So you may think you're the only survivor. I believe that. I am, to be honest with you. My initial thought was I thought he was a syrup killer. My car battery went dead. My phone was dead. Everything was dead. And it's just like tons of traffic, and you're just sitting there like a sitting duck. I ended up running out of gas at like eggs of 86, right past the eggs of 86. Were you feeling desperate? Yeah, it was hot. It was May 2nd. It was really hot outside. Here you are. You have no money, stranded on the side of the interstate, and this truck pulls out behind you. Do you remember what you thought when you first pulled up? Yeah, I thought, well, this looks like a friendly neighbor. I might borrow a lawnmower from. He just kind of yelled from his truck, "Do you need help?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, come on, get in and I'll give you a ride to the next exit. Gets you some gas and bring you back." I taught my kids the same, like never talk to strangers, and I know better and all that. But again, I didn't feel like I had any options at that point. I said, "Sure, thank you." Yes, did not think that he was going to do what he did. I got into the truck, so at that point you did not think he was a danger at all. No, how would you describe what he was like when you first met him? Very awkward. Very, very awkward. I got in the truck, and he was driving, and he asked me if I want to go on his route, and I said, "Oh, I can't do that." I said that I have small kids here that I need to be here for, and I felt like it was already an awkward question because he don't even know me. And I was like, "Okay, Abby, just get through this. Go get gassed. Go back to your car. And it's done." He said, "Well, maybe I'll just have to kidnap you." And I thought, wow, what an awkward joke to make. "I know that you were watching for your exit." I said, "Why aren't you getting in the right lane?" And he said, "Nobody will let me over." And I was just like, no, that's not true, because I'm looking out the passenger side mirror and there's nobody on the interstate, barely anybody. And then it was silent, awkward silence. And then finally I said, "Thank you for your time. I don't need your help anymore. I appreciate it. Please pull over and let me out." He's pulling over, and I think he's like me out, so I grab my purse. I look up at him, and I'm thinking I'm about to say thank you, and he has a gun pointed at me. He said, "This is a kidnapping. I'm going to rape you. Get in the back of the truck." He was very laid back and like he'd done it before. I begged and pleaded with him. At first I said, "Please don't do this." I said, "I've got little kids who need me, so I thought I need to comply." So I did what he said. I went to the back of the truck. But then when I got to the back of the truck, things in my head changed. I was like, nope, I'm not going down without a fight. I'm going to be tackles here. While it was happening, I was already working. He was taken into custody. He was brought back to our office. I spent some time with Miss Mental first and got her version of events, and I did sit down that afternoon or early that evening with Mr. Nels. It correct. "I'm sorry. Yeah, I know there's a lot going on." "Yeah, how serious?" "Well, and that's what I don't know, because you're willing to tell me what happened." "I'm all ears." She looked bloxy. "Was desperate, needing help?" "I'll take you get some gas," he said, plumber. "What, there's nothing here." She gets back to it. "I want to deal with you with some gas. Night." "Yeah, give me your money." "But she's giving me your money. I'm going to take him." "Right," me said, "give me your walk or give me your money." Mr. Knowles gave me a story that mirrored all the facts of Miss Mental's different reason for him. He tried to make up some story about how he was citizen arresting me because I was trying to rob him. The question is, who's telling the truth? She was. She was showing so because here, you give your money, and we'll tell you right. You're crazy. Get out of my truck. She come on round, he started. He may have made me. He jumped on me, and we're wrestling for this gun. She raps, you grab my gun, and now I'm gonna pay. He's on top of me, and I have the gun pointed at his face. Now I'm on the bottom. He's on the top of crime. Twist the gun out of her hand. I didn't want to shoot her, didn't want to shoot me. When I have the gun pointed at his face, I want you to stop, my God. And I pulled the trigger, and nothing happened. I can only imagine what you were thinking at this point. It was the worst feeling, however, when you pull the trigger and nothing happens. Just thought. There that was my one and only chance, and it's gone. So when you pull the trigger, nothing happens. What does he do? He pulls a bigger gun out from somewhere. Hey, I always thought him not polling had her in the hand. He just banged me over, bashed me over the head with it really hard. And I remember feeling warm liquid pouring down my face, and I didn't know at first what it was. But it was blood. Why, I got to stop and handcuff. He pulled my hands behind my back and put handcuffs on me. And at that point, I remember thinking, okay, Ibes, just comply with what he says, or pretend you're complying, at least for right now. He's going to get complacent at some point, and that's when you're going to make your move. Sorry, cleaning up some. I'm sorry I hit. You can't. Don't bring it on me. He lifted my dress up. My hands were handcuffed behind my back. He said, do I need to gag you, or are you going to be quiet? And I said, I'll be quiet. First, he put a blanket over me, and I don't know why he got back in the driver's seat and started driving. Did he say anything about where you were going? While he was wiping the blood away from my face, and I asked him 3 questions. I said, are you going to kill me? He said, no, I'm just going to rape you. I said, how long are you going to keep me for? He said, a few days. I said, are you taking me somewhere scary? That's the only thing that I could think of to ask, because I kept thinking of those scary movies going through my head. And he's going to have me in some cage and with all these knives or something and torturing me or something like. I kept thinking that way, and he said, no, you're going to stand the truck with me. I'm just taking you somewhere isolated. I'm thinking about the fact that my life is probably going to be over here soon. And then I would think about my kids. And like every time I would think my kids' names will go through my head, and I'd just get this adrenaline, like this crazy amount of adrenaline go through my body. And I'd be like thinking, you don't have the right to take away their mommy. First, I had to get my hand out of this handcuff. Honestly, I didn't care if I ripped my whole arm off. I was not going with that guy. I was not going to be raped by him. There's no way. So how did you do it? How'd you get your hand out? I ripped it out as hard as I could, as hard as I possibly could, and it hurt. But I didn't care. I take the blanket that he covered me up with, and I stood up really tall, and I felt like a monster. I was just like I felt savage, like an animal. I just took the blanket, and I lunged toward him as fast as I could, and I threw the blanket over his head, and I put my arm around his neck, and I squeezed my muscles around his neck of bacon, all like Captain Maiden. I grabbed the steering wheel with the other hand, and I started swerving around, swerving like trying to tip the truck over. Yes, you're trying to drive and hold him back at. The same trying. I'm trying, not really trying to drive, I'm trying to tip over the summer. But I was absolutely a crazy, savage animal, like fighting for my life. He ended up saying, okay, come to. Let me give my one handcuff off you, and I'll get you out of it. God. He stops the truck and, put his foot on the brake, and I said, you're going to let me out right now. And he managed to get that handcuff off. I don't know how he got the inket off his head. I don't remember that part. Like everything happened so fast. I remember I jumped out of the semi. I had one shoe on. One shoe off, the other shoes opened the semi-half a dress on because he ripped it. He said something to you as you were leaving. What did he say? He said, I never expected you to fight that much. I've never had anyone fight this much before. I was like, whoa, he's done this before. Like, wow, I thought, who am I dealing with here? I got you one handcuff off and his bush drop. She go run him back down, Rover. Well, I know what's going to happen now. She got blood on her face. She's running down the road. I've got problems now. I ran to the back of the truck and made sure I looked at it. I got 3 letters off of the back of the truck, he did. He just drives away, and I'm sitting there like, help me. Can you help me? Like trying to get somebody to stop. And the guy does pull over finally and calls number 1 and gives me his phone, and I tell the police what happened. They have an ambulance come. And I told them, this is the description of the truck. That's all I can tell you. Then, of course, came out the news about what else was in the cab. It was shocking, to find out what was there. Sample. We're still heading towards Spring Tilt, and he is possibly armed. I just haven't time to stop for me. I just wanted more backup. I man, all right? You for me? All right? Upright? That was crazy. Yeah. Apparently she's crazy enough to get you in some trouble. Trouble live with breaking news. We are uncovering more information by the minute about a truck driver charged with kidnapping tonight. What he did when he was arrested led a local police chief to suspect more trouble was ahead. He actually came out of truck with his hands up already in the air. So I really wasn't nervous or scared because I think he already knew what was going on because he got out of truck with his hands up. You're one of the few people that actually spoke with him. One of the few people that got to ask him questions on the record. Have you ever been arrested for anything before? That's first cause I understood. He came across very almost humbled, respectful. God, I had never had a room before. It became actually more alarming to me that he was that calm, that comfortable, and always had the right answers. He looked boxy, was, desperate, needing help. He seemed very well rehearsed. He just trying to help somebody up and going off the, I could have got it up, I started changing my perception of him. The real tip-topper than me get her some dude. He was the fact that he was going to drive around and get her medical help out there because she was bleeding. Until he found an officer, got cops out there. That's not a normal thing to do. It became actually more alarming to me that he was that calm, that comfortable, and always had the right answers. I just got a lot of things go out to my pistol, made us no good. Something it comes up. I've got that one chance, helped across, hit him with the face with him and hain't cut the whole out of you. Started dawning on me that a lot of this was already there in his head, the answers. Why didn't you go, please? I mean, after she's out the car, because I do exactly where it's going to go. Why I was picked up the cell phones going on the one and say, hey, listen, I just winged down. I should have once she got out. I knew where was struck up. He got blood on her fights. He's running down the road. I've got problems. Now I'm going to ask you if you would give us consent to go through your view. You can say nothing. You're ever ready to say that you got to do it anyway. Well, no. It will do as we will apply for a search. Yeah, you'll get it. I got nothing high in there at this point. Everything inside of me, especially based on what we've already seen and some of the statements he's made, has told me that this is by no means his first time and probably worse. How often would you say you picked up the girl before? How do I once every 2-3 months they're broke down, I'll stop and give him a hand. I don't spread around with truck stop girls because they got peg of the eating discoverage. Yet I think my personal audio with girls, how they're trying to make a little money. It was strange when you're sitting with a man like this to watch it unfold in front of your very eyes and see what, quite frankly, when a monster is coming out. And since underheard that, you've never had anybody fighting like this before? Does that sound familiar or to that? Okay, I don't fight, but I don't hate. Me. Help me. We're gonna get the truth One way or another, who will get the true, and I promise you that. This is something I do all the time, probably. Not born every couple of months, but I've got a free works over at the senior service building. He runs a polygraph. It's a lot of detective for last terms. Is that something you'd be willing to do if Jeremy, come down here tonight? You know polygrapho. I think you're dealing with a man that's been doing it for so many years. He's got I hate to say Jekyll and Hyde, but almost a switch that can turn on this charisma and then turn it right back off when he's ready. I just wonder if you'd be okay. We'll be taking a quick DNA swat her blood truck. Felt about that? Well, I know, but I need to be sure. Yes, that's it. Yes, we got to buy Baker branch in your system about work. I'm just using it. Doesn't it exact? You got DNA first. By that point, we had all the evidence from the vehicle. There was a lot more to this, and based on what I kind of took from him from the interview and the items we found in that vehicle, I'll be honest with you, my initial thought was I thought he was a serial killer. There's been a lot of things in your truck that I've been collected that are very, very questionable. Yes, sir, yes, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to let you know that we are collecting that from talking. Okay, I don't, but I gave him a shore to start the truck. I gave permission to get that. That night, the bloody underwear of several women were found inside that driver's truck. Some of the tools that were in that vehicle were barbaric in nature. These are things that, to me, suggest a torture mindset. I really think this is not your first time with something like this. And I'm wondering, is there going to be any other cases that are going to come back on that? No, not that I know. There's a real problem with your version of events. I can understand it. I could stand it. It doesn't make sense. I can understand that it doesn't make sense. It's potentially serious charge. I think all the things that have been collected, the evidence that's being put together is fairly strong. I don't think you're being completely truthful. I could understand why you would say that, because I've been running back to my mind over and over and over, and I see 1,000 mistakes I make, but I can't track your damn whatever. The biggest problem in that version, it was handcuffs. Yeah, probably. Nobody handcuffs somebody to try to get rid of your handcuff, to keep somebody. My thought has been that, yeah, there probably are victims out there in your shoes. I would be saying the same. Thanks, like I probably need to get a lawyer. Look at bad in my mind. I know it's looking bad your mind, Roy Knowles, to me, really embodies evil. I mean, this to me was a pure embodiment of evil. And breaking news at this hour, the U.S. Attorney of Middle Tennessee telling News for Investigates that a multi-state investigation is underway to find out if a truck driver has victims throughout the Mid-South. It comes as that truck driver, Roy Nelsh, appears before a federal judge tonight on new charges. Let's go, Lee, to Chief Investigator Jeremy Finley at the federal courthouse. Jeremy, they're calling this man a danger to society. That's right. Tracy, the U.S. Attorney from Middle Tennessee, tells me what they found inside the cab of his truck is the reason they hold him here today at federal courts from Clarksville in order to charge him with multiple crimes. And he says to make sure that he no longer drives the interstates of the Mid-South. Also, prosecutors revealed new findings tonight, saying Nelsh kept weapons, more than 10,000 images of child pornography, and a ledger with the names of women and children inside the cab of his truck. To be honest, that was the piece of evidence that chilled me the most. Do we know if any of those people are missing people? I can say that it's something that the TBI continues to investigate. I think that the evidence suggests that there were other victims. I've tried sex abuse cases. I've tried child pornography cases. Some of the most disturbing evidence I've ever seen. The story, when you read it or hear about it, sounds like a movie. Her fight to live, the will that must have come from so deep inside of her. I knew that she was just completely on adrenaline in that moment, and that something inside her just made her fight to live. The boat rope with blood on it, that was like, what on earth was he going to do to me? That's another question that constantly goes through my head. How would I going to die that day? Do you sometimes think about who else has been in that cab with? Him absolutely all the time, and I wonder. And it's just there's not a day that goes by. I don't wonder or think about that. Hello, this is a prepaid call from Roy. Hello, I love you, and I love you. Obviously, I've heard those same calls that he made to his loved ones. This is your home. I'm doing your watch, and we're through your family, and it's just the sight of fact. I hope you kind of stick with me to this, and wherever it goes, I don't know where it's gonna go. Really about plating for the worst. Yeah, if it goes as advantage, I think it is. And, whatever you want to do, because I will not be going back if your time in the future. It certainly did sound like, yes, he knew he was never going home. Hey, Melissa, hey, I know they're recording there. Yeah, I just want to know, Blue, in the hell was you supposed to have kidnapped? Well, I can't really talk about it right now. I know you're a good friend, but, you don't really get too involved in this because it's not good. I don't want to drag you into it. A hitchhiker picking up. It's actually a short story that everything got turned around on, but it's not going to go well for me. I know that they're calling this heinous. That's what the investigators are. I don't know what heinous is wicked and evil. Oh, like I said, what you're doing very wicked and evil to whoever, I have no idea. I get very little. I probably don't sound on you at all. They're blowing up my way up. For your way up for you, but I figured they would. Hello, Tim, Melissa, it's Jeremy. How are you? I'm fine. I want to make it very clear that now this is on the record. The first question I wanted to ask you, how it is you even came to know Roy Nels. I got out of truck driving through a well, and when I came back, I had to go out with the trainer when I got hurt with the company, and Roy was my trainer. You rode with him for quite some time, right? The training program was 4 to 6 weeks, so I stayed with him on the truck for at least 4 weeks. Would you describe him as a friend? Yes, he was a very close on dear friend, Roy Jason Lemon, but he was faithful to taking care of his family. Thus, I almost taken care of well. I've listened to your conversations that you had with him. You've made it very clear to him that you know what prosecutors and police have said. Were you trying to get answers as well? Did you have your doubts? I definitely had my doubts about what neighbor abusing Roy up, what the woman was accusing Roy up, and they's placing that off first statement and David, so you believed him. Roy never told me the full story because he was at last his lawyers not discuss any part of that case anymore. It can be used against him. So, what do you think about the question that there may be other victims out there? I don't believe that. Why don't you believe that? I've never even seen Roy ever Lucy's camper. I'm saying him get mad, but I've seen him stop and stop himself from going any further. So you never saw him get angry? You never saw him do anything violent? Oh, ever. There were a lot of things found in the cab of that truck that were really disturbing, from women's underwear with blood on it, to a bloody rope, to a knife. Well, I got a rope knife, take, but I'm of the day out zip ties, and don't my truck as part of the equipment I need on my truck. Do you think that's what those were? Was equipment? That's what I know, it was his equipment because I've been in Roy's truck. Do you feel like that you actually knew him? Or do you think he could have been living a double life? Look, I knew that there was a time that Roy was stopped and picked women. He admitted that to me. But as far as Roy Mantap, that trying to force his Sapone women being on the truck with him, so they never tried any of the... Did he intend to go to trial? Did he want to go to truck? Yes, he intended to go to trial. His Lacavi I had for grass. They had diagnosed it at the 50s at Sanita. They didn't want any treatment. He didn't go through any treatment. With H, the Luke, and you did. He keep this evidence? Did he keep these women's clothing as trophies? Unfortunately, we'll never know. The long-haul truck are accused of kidnapping a woman and keeping a bloody bag filled with women's underwear, and the cab of his truck has died. When you found out that he had died, what was your first thought? I reached out to Abby. I wanted to make sure, but she already knew. I was upset. I didn't want him to die yet. I really didn't. I wanted to do the trial first, and I wanted him to be exposed. I wanted him to have to face the world for what he's done. I wanted to know more about what he's done. He is the key to what I believe it's going to be a lot of unsolved cases, a lot of mysteries, possibly a lot of victims out there. So yeah, I feel that his passing may leave a lot of questions unanswered. Tonight, what Newsbird Investigates has uncovered is perhaps the most troubling secret about a long-haul truck driver suspected of being a serial killer of women. Now, we want to warn you, the details are extremely graphic. Chief Investigative Reporter Jeremy Finley then traveled to Coleman, Alabama, to track down those who knew about him and the secrets he kept behind bars. Roy Nels's own communication was by phone, calls to a woman who knew one of Nelson's most troubling secrets. I was in a lonely state. I had left an abusive relationship, and I was just looking forward just to feel something. I love you. You know that you do? You really know that? You? What enticed you at all to even begin a relationship with this guy? Companionship, I guess? I was just really lonely, and he was nice. I wonder if he can talk about how you met him. I met him through a Craigslist ad. I was just looking for some kind of companionship, and he had placed an ad. It was just something that when I read the ad that he had placed, I'm not quite sure why I answered it. I just thought, yeah, this sounds exciting. Honestly, his ad was for a rape fantasy. He was open from the very beginning. He was looking for some kind of rape fantasy. We spoke on the phone. We spoke through text. And we set up going through with that fantasy that he had spoke about in the ad. I have never done anything like this before. He came in with a mask on. He came in with a knife. He cut my shirt off with a knife, and he brought me tied up real easily. Actually, I was surprised at how fast I was on the floor, and he had my hands tied up. I immediately thought to myself, this is stupid too, and I started trying to get the roots off. I did manage to get one of the roots off, but he saw me doing that, and he tightened it. And that's when I kind of freaked out a little bit, and the fantasy stopped there because I told him I do not like being tied up. I don't like this. And hand tied me. He didn't have to fight him. Good night. Were you ever scared with the ropes on? I was, but immediately when he took them off when I asked him to, I wasn't afraid. So I thought that I was going to enjoy this. I said, it's more real right now, and I'm not liking this. He brought in a bag with him, and I later found out it wasn't that night, but I later found out what he had in the bag. The things that he had in the bag were really quite disturbing. He never was on me. I had no idea when I said I was up for anything he actually had in mind. I think he told me that he called it something, on his back of Turks. Can you tell me what was in it? Yeah. The thing that really got to me, that I was shocked over, was he had a thing full of pins, and he had a stun gun, and he said women would allow him to put the pins through their skin, was whether it was on their chest, wherever, so that he would have these long pins. He would put them through their skin, and he would use this thumb gun on the pins. I guess too intense upon this thumb. Do you remember what you thought when you saw that? I thought that I was a complete idiot for even agreeing to do anything like this. Do you remember what else was in the bag? He had like a tired iron. I know he had some adult toys. He had rope. He had handcuffs. We discussed handcuffs. You said those are for use as a weapon. Yeah, you're handcuffed, else you have a key available, because clearly you intend to put them on somebody at some point, or potentially caught barrel break. Understood that I'd like Tay. He was I'm helping about me. We never used to handcuffs. That was not you. That was not me. Were warning bells going off in your head? No, he had made you feel pretty comfortable. We got to the point of depends on the stun gun. He was talking about different women that he had picked up and that actually enjoyed doing that. I had gone into his truck probably 2 different times, and he had his bag of tricks in there. He had women's bras hanging from one of the beds in there, and I asked him about his wife and what she thought about that, and he said that his wife doesn't ever go in the truck. She's not a while, too. Was there ever a time you thought this guy is dangerous? This guy's bad news? Not until after he was arrested? How did you find it? He was supposed to come over, and it had been a couple of days. I was trying to call him, and he wasn't answering when I said, when he Googled his name. So I Googled him the same thing. I was thinking dark accident, and I Googled his name, and it came up that he had been arrested. And remember, the story had really happened. What'd you think? I thought, not that it wasn't surprising. It was surprising, but I pretty much immediately thought, yeah, this is something that he could do. So you weren't really that surprised? It sounds like I wasn't really surprised when I read what he had done, just because of how our relationship started. I knew what he was into, and he had talked about picking up girls. Yes, do you think he was lying to you the whole time? I do. I really didn't think about it too much until you contacted me. I do think he was lying. Definitely, I think he was lying. Do you worry that there are other women out there? I do? Is the only reason why I'm doing this? I feel like that's just a complete fool, and it's super embarrassing for me. I'm shocked at my behaviors looking back on it. And after going through therapy, I'm shocked of my behavior. When did you decide we're done? I'm closing the store. My best recollection is after I heard what they're found in this truck. I was mortified because children are involved. It's impossible to get past. You can't get past them. Then T-by-A just reached out to you. Well, I reached out to them first. There was some kind of hotline number, if you know anything about this, to me and a girl heading call. And I just figured I'm gonna girl heading call and just kind of let them know what I know of him. I didn't want them to think that I was hiding. Did they have serious suspicion that there were other victims? Yes? What were you going through after this happened? Well, I felt obviously holding for the victim, holding for his wife and his family in just a water, shame, and therapy. I wonder, at the end of the day, do you feel like he was leading a double life? I definitely do. I definitely do. After this happened, what happened to your life? What happened to you? You were intending to move to Florida to be with your daughters. Yes, well, that didn't happen. No, I just got stuck where I was stuck in place. I couldn't move forward. I don't know why. It was just really hard to even think about the future, think about anything. And I would just stay after day, would ask, and I'd stay stuck. Eventually, I did, a couple of years later, pull it together and move. What do you think is the effect on you? My life was there and almost gone, like in this matter of seconds. I do have memories about it. Yeah, there are triggers that, remind me of having me I end up having flashbacks. I don't know how I'm still alive. You wanted to know if there were other victims. You wanted to know all of this. There's a chance you may never know. We may never know what he did. There'll be a question marked in my head forever. I think that the evidence suggests that there were other victims. I hope if any of them see this production that they can stop looking around the corner.